in this video, I'm going to define the derivative of the cosine inverse, and I'm going to show the proof of where it came from. Okay, so the fact that you want to know is that the derivative of cosine inverse, okay, is -1 over the square root of 1 minus x squared. Okay, if you watched the previous video that had sine inverse of x, the derivative, then this looks somewhat familiar. The big difference is that this one has a -1 on the top. Okay, so this is a fact that we want to memorize, and we will generalize it for chain rule in just a minute. But for those who are curious about where this came from, so we want to take the derivative of cosine inverse of x. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use what we know, sorry about that. We're going to use what we know about cosine, that this is the same thing as x equals the cosine of y. All right, now we're going to take the derivative with respect to x. So when I take the derivative with respect to x, I'm going to get a 1. The derivative of cosine is negative sine, and then a dy dx. And this is what I want to solve for, is that dy dx. So I'm going to divide by negative sine y. Okay. Now, I cannot say that my derivative is in terms of y. My original function, right, my original function had x's, so it's not a good form to give my answer in y's. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this to draw a right triangle. So that right triangle that we're going to see, the angle is y, okay? But the cosine of y equals x over 1, which is adjacent over hypotenuse. So in this picture, the hypotenuse is 1, the adjacent is x. So when I solve for this side, I'm going to get the square root of 1 minus x squared. Okay, so if I look at this then, what I will have is that the sine of y, so by this picture, the sine of y will equal the square root of 1 minus x squared all over 1, opposite over hypotenuse. Okay, so this is what I'm going to put in for sine y. So what we're going to end up with is I'm going to float that negative upstairs, -1 over the square root of 1 minus x squared. Ta-da! Okay, so that is matching this up here. All right, now I'm going to erase my board for just a second so that I can show you the chain rule version. All right, the chain rule version of this rule. So if I have the cosine inverse of stuff, how this is going to work is I'm going to have -1 over the square root of 1 minus stuff squared times the derivative of the inside. Okay, so again, this is very similar to the cosine inverse. The only main difference is that we have a -1 floating upstairs. All right, in the next video, I'm going to practice some examples.